Folks, welcome to Paisa Paisa. I'm your host, Anupam Gupta, B50 on Twitter, and this is a really special episode. We're going to discuss a very, very interesting topic. Okay, end of human beings. You don't need human beings anymore. Okay, jokes apart. The role of machine learning in investing. My guest is Kanika Agarwal, co-founder and CIO at Upside AI. Now, as per its website, Upside AI uses machine learning to make better investment decisions than humans. Okay, better investment decisions than humans over the long term. Is that even possible? Of course it is. That's why they're there. Let's find out how. Kanika, welcome to Paisa Paisa. Thank you so much for doing this for our listeners.
Hi, Anupam. Very happy to be here and talk about why humans are doing such a poor job and what we're doing differently.
Oh yeah, and humans are going through a pretty tough time right now.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
so let's start with a background to Upside AI.
So,
How old is your firm? When did you start? What were you guys thinking? Who are your co-founders?
right, sure. So we actually got together with three of us. You're talking to me, of course. My background has been finance my entire career. Both my co-founders are from IIT Bombay, and like all good engineers, after engineering, they turned up at Credit Suisse to do investment banking, as they do. And Nikhil, the CTO, actually went back to IIT Bombay and did his PhD in machine learning. And that's a lot of the concepts we've used to build out our systems. And Atanu was in New York for many years, working with a finance firm, and then we sort of got together and in 2017 started building this. So the inspiration for us was really Warren Buffett and Benjamin Graham, right? Atanu is a big Benjamin Graham bhakt. He's reading The Intelligent Investor, gets us to read it, and Warren Buffett has this quote right at the beginning where what he's saying is to be a good investor, you don't necessarily need to have, you don't need to be very smart or have secret information, any of that. He's saying build sustainable frameworks and don't let your emotions corrode those frameworks, right? Simple enough. And this is where most humans fail, right? Enough emotions get in the way and they're constantly corroding their own frameworks. So we said, okay, how do you keep emotion out of investing? Let's build tech to do it. And that was really the starting point for us. Spent a year building the tech, spent a year after that testing it in live markets, all of 2018. And then 2019 is when we really launched. So,
Nice.
so
And
been
then
around for about 2 years now.
2020 would actually be a good time for you guys to test your product.
Yeah, trial by fire.
Okay. So let's start with the problem, right? And that's quite simple. You use Benjamin Graham as a wonderful starting point for a framework, right?
Right.
So why are human beings a problem when it comes to investing? Human beings created the market. Human beings created mutual funds. They
Correct.
created ETFs. Not all of us, of course, are great investors. Um, just delve into this as a concept philosophically. I mean,
Yeah.
at the face of it, of course, everybody knows that everyone says active investing doesn't work. So go to ETFs, blah, blah, blah. But I want
Huh.
two things from you here. One is
Yeah.
the concept, like you said, and the second
Correct.
is any data that you could show that supports
Yeah.
that investing, as you say, based on human beings has failed, whether it's
Right.
global, whether it's India, whatever. Let's go into that.
Right. Right. So, yes, you're right. Right. Humans have created all of this, and in fact, humans are coding the machines that are investing in the market. Right. So, at no point are we saying that okay, bye humans. But what we're saying is that the reason, and there's so many studies around this which say Daniel Kahneman, he won a Nobel Prize in behavioral economics a few years ago and wrote this book called Thinking Fast and Slow, which I would highly recommend. There's an extract in there where he's essentially saying that over 50 years of data, you will see that mutual funds, investing in mutual funds or doing beating the index is like tossing a coin. 2 out of 3 mutual funds every single year underperform the index, right? And this is 50 years of data in the US. So we said, okay, this sounds crazy. Let's us go and verify it. So we went back in time. We started pulling data in the US, 20, 30 years of data. And we said, okay, top 25% of mutual funds over that period, how do they do over 20 years? Right? If you put $100 in at 20 years later, what does it do? It does about $264, right? 100 works to 264. And if you put the same money in the S&P 500, you would have made $275. You would make more money just putting money in the index than in the best mutual funds in the US, right? And this is true in India also. I think there's a stat that's been floating where last year, 0 large cap mutual funds beat the index in a bull market, right? Over the last 5 years, 80% of mutual funds have been unable to beat the index. So there's enough data that is pointing you to the fact that humans are not doing a good job of beating the index. Now, having said all of this, are we saying that, okay, bye-bye active investing, we're not going to do this anymore, everyone just put money in ETFs, right? At no point is that the claim we're making. So who do you think the most successful investor of all time is?
I would, it depends on what you defined as most successful and what you defined as
Returns.
period of time. I guess I would probably go with the Warren Buffett because he's got 50-year track record of, I think, double digits or something.
Correct. And he does, right? And that's great for a human. But actually, the best investor of all time is a machine built by Renaissance Technologies. It's fund in the US that has done a 66% annualized gross return since the 1970s. Right? That's 40, 50 years of data, or just machine investing. So I guess the point I'm making is that, and that's active investing. So we are not saying active investing is dead. We're saying humans are increasingly biased and corroding their frameworks, and that's why they're failing. Right? So for us, I think Morgan Housel put this up on Twitter recently, where he said that the best thing you can do for yourself is average returns over an above average period of time. Right? So for us, that's really what we're targeting. All you want to do is do slightly better than the index consistently enough for that to compound into outsized alpha. And the philosophy is to do that using fundamentals and not so much technicals, or use those kind of signals.
Okay, the example of Renaissance that you used, I'm assuming that takes into account back testing, because that kind of computing power would not have been.
He started in the 70s. This is live track record.
Okay, I'm guessing that Buffet's was in the whatever 50s, 60s. Chalo, anyway, ठीक है, whatever.
50, 60. हाँ, उसका 20 साल पहले से. You're right.
ठीक है. So I want to just go back to what you said about ETFs, because for a lot of the retail public now, the belief is to move towards ETF because whatever active investing is dead. I mean, these are.
Yes.
I don't like to talk in terms of simplification such as this, that active investing is dead, therefore go to ETFs. Correct. But I want to just go back to what you specifically said about ETFs. You said that that's not what we are saying.
Right.
What's your point of view on ETFs? I mean, A, probably how they're sold, B, how they're perceived, and C, the general conversation. Because I'm sure that you would be a part of many conversations around why should I even invest with you? Let me just construct a, 50, 50, 50, or whatever, 33, 33, 33. I can put one third in this index, one third in that index, one third in the last index. I'm just saving on the expenses. Yeah.
Correct.
And that those expenses are nothing but a buffer on my 10-20 performance. So what do you have to say to that?
So I don't entirely disagree, honestly. So Warren Buffett in the 2000s had a very famous bet with a hedge fund, where he said that I'll put money in an index hedge fund. You pick your best 5 funds, okay, to put money in, and we'll track our performance over the next 10 years. It's a $100,000 bet. Money goes to charity. Let's see who does better. Right. And at the end of those 10 years, Buffett's ETFs handily beat the best 5 hedge funds that guy had picked. Right. So to me, again, that's very telling on the power of ETFs, but it's not as simple, right? So it's twofold. One is, if you're saying that let's figure out what's the right approach to invest behind, there are ETFs, which is an approach. There's human active investing, and then there's what we're talking about, which is using tech to do active investing. Right. So forget about the product. It's more what's the approach. And now once you start thinking in terms of approach, you need to start thinking about diversification. Right. There's no one thing you should be doing. Right. You should not be putting all your money in ETFs, but you should not be putting all your money in a human either. Right. So goes back to the same thing, which is they all need to coexist. You need to be diversified across them. And in the US, this is mainly the problem that's happening. Right. Bogle started. John Bogle Vanguard started, ETFs way back in the 70s, and now they've become too big. What's happening is, at some point, the idea of putting money in ETFs was to play the entire market, not take a call on what's going to do better, and that's starting to now hurt the stock markets, because ETFs themselves are drivers of price. So there's no price discovery happening anymore. Once you reach that stage, active investing now starts having a more better role to play, because now they have place to find alpha, right? So they're all self-correcting cycles. So at no point will I say, ETFs are going to take over and stop looking at anything else, but you need to diversify and stop thinking about star mutual fund managers as the only way to be investing.
Yeah, I mean, the ETF is actually an answer to the whole star mutual fund culture. Anyway, so let's get to the rise of, now we've covered the human being part in a lot of detail. Let's get to the rise of machines and how you think that AI, ML, artificial intelligence, machine learning has
Yeah.
solved the problem globally, has either solved or is solving the problem, either globally or in India. What's been happening in these areas that makes you so confident that this is the future?
Yeah. So, over the last few decades, so we're not talking about something new, right? Tech in investing is not some dramatic revolutionary thing I've come up with. In the West, there is a very clear shift away from humans into systemized rules-based investing. Now, whether that's ETFs, whether that's machines, whatever you want to call it, there is a shift away from people into rules. So 60-70% of US trading activity is now tech run, right? More money flows into ETFs than human managed mutual funds. In fact, there are no more ETFs listed in the US now than actual stocks. That's
Yeah.
how many ETFs have come up, right? And your top 5 hedge funds in the world are all quants now. So you're seeing this shift. But in India, what's happening today is, for us, we're still thinking of tech as arbitrage trading, high frequency stuff, technicals, all of that. But 80-90% of our equity allocations are going into fundamental investing, right? Because you're giving it to mutual funds who are making decisions saying, hey, I'm an expert and I'm going to find alpha for you using my gut and my intuition. So we're saying that is what needs to be disrupted. If you can see what's happening world over, where money is shifting away from people, it's going to come here. If you think 20 years into the future, do you think there'll be more ML shops or less ML shops in the country? Right? Answer is clearly more. So that's the direction in which you're moving. So for us, that's the ethos, which is to say, okay, if 80-90% of allocation is to fundamental investing, let's use machines to solve that. So that's the trend we see, and that's the trend we are trying to follow, or at least do in India.
Give me some examples here, okay?
Yeah.
Probably some mistakes that humans do that the machine won't, right? I'm just going back to the previous points that we spoke about, but I just want to get this into slightly, something more specific, something that our listeners can understand, that this is something that a human would do. This is something that a machine won't do. I get that, Kahneman, mutual funds, biases, blah, blah. That's, you've explained that really well.
Yes.
And you've also outlined how quants and, computers are actually now driving the next wave. Okay, all fine.
Yes.
Do you have specific examples there, like, boom, this is something that, this is the fault of a human being, and if a machine was handling this, things would have been better?
Yeah. So let's use some, right? So for example, let's assume I invested in sugar stocks in 2017. Okay, and I lost my shirt on it. Now, for the next 5 years, or probably for the rest of my life, I'll never look at sugar again, right? Because I'm just scared of the trauma or whatever that's coming. My machine has bought Just Dial for 4 quarters in a row. It's lost money some quarters, it's made money some quarters. But the point is, every single time it has to make a decision, it is ruthlessly trying to figure out, is this still $100 bill I can buy at $80? It doesn't care what it did last quarter, right? It's just trying to figure out, does it make sense now? So to me, being able to be unemotional is one part of it, right? The other one is, and unbiased, I guess, flows right into it. Or go back to March 2020 and think about the kind of decisions you should be making, right? Should you sit in cash? Markets are in free fall. There's enough panic going around. You don't know where the bottom is. So for us, we have a set schedule according to which we buy. We buy in March, July, October, December. March, we're buying around 15 March, which is right in the middle of the free fall. No idea where bottom is. Machine says, these are 10 stocks you need to buy because these make sense. Don't sit in cash. That's what you do, right? Me as a human, while I was buying it, I was scared, right? I know I have to follow the machine, but still my biases are coming in the way. And that obviously, paid off handsomely for us. But the idea is to set rules and follow those rules consistently. And don't let your past mistakes cause you to make future mistakes, right? So and that's what Kahneman's entire book is, just a whole bunch of laundry list of biases we come with, right? Whether it's hindsight bias, whether it's the recency bias. There's so many of them, and I'd love to do a tweet storm with you where we talk about them in a lot more detail. But there's a whole bunch. Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of biases, but that's what makes us human. I mean, stock prices are driven ultimately by humans, not by machines. So correct. The price movements that you get is actually whether it's up or whether it's down, it's because a human being is either making a very smart call or a very dumb call. That's how markets go. Yeah. Anyway, I want to really get into depth into your product, what you have to offer, because that sounds really, really exciting. Kanika, I'm waiting to hear the proof of your claim, right? On your website that the best,
Yes,
that your algorithms are more successful than the best human investors in the country. Okay.
correct.
Before you prove that, just
Hmm.
tell our listeners the products that you have, right? Because I'm
Right.
sure they're just waiting to give you all their money.
Yeah,
And if
yeah.
they're headed to, where do they cut their checks to you? Where
Sure.
do they go?
Sure. So when we started in 2019, what we did was launched our PMS, which is a portfolio management service. Now,
The time when the limit was 25 lakhs.
that time it was 25, and then 6 months later it went up to 50 lakhs.
Okay.
So that is a product for high net worth individuals, family offices, institutions. Those are the kind of clients we have there who have to cut a minimum 50 lakh, check. So there, it's managed almost as a fund where we manage the money, make decisions, buy and sell, etc., etc. And then last year in October, we'd been thinking about it all of 2020 to say, you know, I've been talking all this entire episode about how important it is to have tech as part of your approach, and that's really missing for retail investors to be able to have access to products. Why is it only guys who have 50 lakhs who can access these products? So we said we want to democratize it and work with small case to create products that you can invest even a lakh in. So that's what we've done now. So you can go to our microsite with small case and log in and invest as little as a lakh and start testing out the products. Right. So that's our retail offering, all the way from a lakh to 49 lakhs. You go there, 50 lakhs plus, you come to us.
So you've got a PMS and you've got a small case.
Yes, that's right.
Thankfully, you're not running those advisory schemes. I mean, good. I don't know why people do that,
No,
but I'm
none
really
of that.
glad that
It's you stay transparent, yeah.
this is a straight up PMS and a small case. Choose
Correct.
whatever you want.
Whatever you
The PMS starts at 50 lakhs. The small case starts at what, 1 lakh?
Yes, 1 lakh.
Yeah.
Correct.
So, folks, we'll get
Correct.
into the costing of that a little bit later towards the end of the show. But now that you know the products,
Yeah.
let's go right in. How are your algorithms more successful than the best human investors in the country?
Right. So what do we mean by that? Right now, if there are enough databases that track PMS performance month on month and year on year, over various periods of 200, 300 PMS schemes in the country. So one of them, PMS Bazaar, I think is the most comprehensive. For 2020, we were in the top 10% of PMSs in the country, right?
On a 1 year performance.
Yeah, because we have only a year and a half, right? So your starting point for everyone is different. So for 2020, we were, beating 90% of PMS managers, PMS experts out there. And in general, PMS experts are pretty much cream of the crop, right? Because it takes a lot of time, effort to get your license, get AUM, and then start building it. So you're anyway assuming that they're experts, best of the best, and we're able to beat 90% of them. So that is where the claim comes from. Hopefully, we continue to do that. The idea is to keep doing average returns over above average periods of time. That's what we're really trying to do.
So what have you measured yourself since inception? I know it's a short time period, but you'd be completing 2 years anytime soon?
Yes, in end of June, we'll complete 2 years.
Okay.
So far, cumulative since we started, we've delivered 48% returns. The Nifty 500, which is our index, has done 28. So we have a 20% alpha since we started.
And you measure yourself against what? The Nifty
500.
50, the Nifty 500 TRIM.
The TRIM, correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and these statistics are there on your website, and everybody can check them out.
Yes, you can go. We have tear sheets. We have our disclosure document. Download everything.
Because I mean, the thing with PMSs is that comparing them is still not that easy because they're not required to make their disclosure public in a certain sense. You need to have an aggregator that aggregates all the information, and I'm not sure how much of it is actually out there in the public domain. But take it, that's that's on the industry.
Yeah, no, but that's changed a lot because SEBI has come down and said, listen, you guys need to have standardized returns reported. So now the returns that I tell you have to be the same I report to SEBI, and SEBI is very clear on the methodology to follow, which is a TWRR. So now everyone in their marketing material has to use the exact same returns they tell SEBI.
Lovely.
So
this is a lovely. Tell us about TWRR. I want our listeners to understand this concept, because it's a slightly more nuanced concept than absolute returns. Okay.
Yes.
Which is just year on year or whatever. It's like you're taking absolute a little. So just explain to our listeners what exactly is TWRR, the full form, how it's calculated, and why it's actually important when you're looking at a PMS.
Yes. So a TWRR is time-weighted rate of return, right? Usually when you're looking at people giving you IRRs or XIRRs or any of that, it's weighted by the amount of money that went in. right? So if say we're putting in money every year, okay, so 1st Jan 2018, someone put in $100, 2019 someone put in 1 million, and 2020 they put in 100 rupees again. The weighted in an XIR or an IRR, the most weightage would be of that 1 million that came in right in the middle, right? Because it's money weighted. Now, time weighted is completely different, because even if you put 10 rupees in 2018, that has the most weightage. What the whole idea of testing is to say, okay, what is your return over a period of time, which is the most consistent or the most pure. So if I put 10 rupees in 2018, uska weightage sabse zyada hai. Then no matter, even if I put million in 2019, that has, 1/3 less weightage, right? And then the next year has slightly lesser. So it's a lot more complicated than I'm explaining, but mota, what you're trying to do is say, give time more weightage than you do the amount of money that went in. And to us, that's very powerful, because, that sort of separates the wheat from the chaff, if you will, right? So as you start, you're actually giving pure, unadulterated returns right from the beginning. So in general, even as you guys calculate your returns, give enough weightage to your time-weighted rate of return as well, and not just
And
XIRRs, etc.
that's become an industry norm now.
Yes,
And
you
I'm
have
hoping
to.
that
And actually, SEBI is very clear on how to calculate fees, how to deduct it from your TDR, everything. So very, very transparent now.
okay. And I'm guessing that the aggregators that publish this information on a monthly or whatever basis are actually going to be reporting TWRR also.
They have
right?
to. They
Okay.
have to, because that's what the PMSs have to tell them. And all
Okay.
disclosure documents, if you go to, will have all these returns. So any PMSs site you go to, they must have the disclosure doc, and they must have these returns.
Okay. Now let's get into the process. Okay, because I'm
Right.
sure that you would agree it's all about the process. So
Right.
how do you actually teach your machine, right? Because this is more than just opening an Excel file and putting a few if-then statements, or opening some coding and just
Correct.
putting some lines of code out there. Because I mean, let's face it, a screener can do that. You
Yes.
just go to a free screener on the website, and you just tell them that I want 5-year track record of ROEs, 5-year track record of debt equity, and these all parameters are damn easy to make. They're made by human beings, by the way.
Correct.
Tell us how you're different.
Yeah, love it. So firstly, a screener is basic hygiene. We should all use it. If you're making a decision on how to invest, that's the first nice framework to start. Right. So for us, what are you doing? There is P&L, balance sheet, cash flow data of all companies on the NSE that go into the algo. We throw out everything that's illiquid. You can't realistically buy or sell. All of that goes out, and we don't consider PSUs. After that, what happens is every company is converted into a bunch of fundamental ratios and numbers that you and I should look at to analyze a company. We just talked about some of them, right? Your growth numbers, your ROEs, etc. But what's important here is, I'm not saying that 20% growth is good, or I need a 5-year track record of 20% ROE. I'm just saying these are the numbers. Now, each company is defined as 20, 30 numbers. Now, what's happening is, which is the third stage for us, which is learning, is where the algo is now teaching itself what it means to be a good stock in current market conditions. Now, what we mean by that is that every market values different things. And that's why these screeners, work till they don't, or static parameters work till they don't. Because what happens is, they'll say, Achani, if I buy below 20p and sell above 20p, I'll always do well. But you'll do well till markets turn. So the whole point is to say, hey, I don't know the right growth number. I don't know the right weightage on growth. And I don't know how that growth interacts with the debt on their books. So you figure out in this market what makes sense. And that's what it's doing when it's trying to teach itself, right? What it keeps doing is building ideas of good fundamental parameters in its head, goes back in time, starts testing them, learns from it, and then based on what it learned, go back again and pick something else. So it's a guided search where it's constantly iteratively testing different ideas to teach itself what it means to be good in these markets. Right. And let me give you an example. Sorry.
No, go on. Complete. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just give you an example. So for example, in March 2020, we talked about this sometime back. What is it buying? It's saying markets are in free fall. I want to buy safe stocks. So let's look at these 10 companies which have no debt on their books, high ROEs. I don't care about P. By the way, they're all export oriented. Lots of them are specialty chemical companies, which I think will do well over the next quarter. So that's what we bought, and we fell with the market as markets fell, and then the next month market recovered 14%. We went up 21%. Right, but come July, it starts moving into cyclicals. It's saying, hey, let's buy auto ancillaries. Right, come December, it's saying let's look at steel, textiles, let's look at value stocks. So at all points, all of these are good stocks. Atul Industries is good in March, it's good in December also. But what the market values has slowly changed over that period. So can you try and figure that out? Intersection of actual value and perceived value. That's really what we're trying to do.
Okay, I kind of heard you in passing use a certain phrase called market condition. Okay.
Yeah.
Define that. I'll give you some background why I'm asking this. It's because once you're with a stock or let's say with a company, you have an annual report that's it, you're sorted. If you come from the school of thought that says I literally don't care about markets.
Correct.
I only care about stocks.
Right.
And I have a certain screener that has whatever 20, 30 parameters, and I'm going to screen. There are about 5,500 companies listed on the BSE, about 3,000-4,000 actively traded. I'm going to put that there. There, I'm not looking at, and market has its own indicators. There is flows, there is open interest, there is volatility.
Yes.
You mentioned market conditions. So is your algo also sensitive to market conditions? Because you're putting one layer above company analysts out here. Right. Did you mention that? Yeah.
Right. So no, so we are only a bottom-up shop. So when we say market conditions, what we mean is, think of the market as this massive grid, okay, of 2,500 companies. Now they all have different fundamentals and they're all valued differently. So that is your definition of market conditions to us.
Okay.
I'm not saying inflation, interest rate.
So but a lot of people, when they look at quants, they add in like tons of. They will do a momentum on flows. Flows is one of the best indicators that you have out there of time in the market. Typically, maybe some people, it's probably more relevant to traders. If you're in the old school thought of value investing, these are actually meaningless to you. So you're saying that you focus only on companies, right?
Yes.
Bottom up, like you said.
Yes.
50 million ideas and 5 crore. What 5 crore ideas? Where have you got this from? Tell us here. Just 1 minute, folks. The 50 million ideas is there on Upside AI's website. It says that Upside AI analyzes 50 million ideas. That's a lot. Tell us
every
about
quarter.
That. Wow. Okay.
So let me tell you what that means, right? So what we're saying, like we were saying, the NSE is a grid which has 2,500 companies. हमने liquidity पे threw a bunch of it out. So realistically, you have a universe of 600 you're tracking. Now, when it's trying to learn from ideas, what it's doing is building pockets. Okay, so it'll build a basket of 15 stocks and test its idea. So how many iterations can it look at? It can look at 600 C15. That's how many ideas exist on the market for it to look at. That number is bigger than the number of atoms in the universe, 600 C15, right? So that's a space that it can go through. What's actually looking at is 5 crore, which is a very, very small subset of that. But because it's a guided search, it's a good enough search for it to figure out, is this telling me what I need to know? So that's what we mean by 50 million ideas, which is 50 million portfolios or baskets of stocks being constantly picked to figure out these market conditions and figure out value on the market today. So that's what we mean.
You're a chartered accountant, right?
Yes.
And I wish
Unfortunately.
ऐसा मत बोलो, please. I'm a CA and I'm very, I might not be proud of my degree, but my degrees essentially gave me my entire future. No, I say that because maths was never a very big part of a curriculum, right?
Right.
You mentioned 600 C15. That's that's about as mathematics as you can get, because that's combinations and permutations. And 600 C15 is what? What's the value of 600 C15?
Bigger than the number of atoms in the universe.
Whatever that number is.
बहुत बड़ा है. Yeah.
Okay. Give me the slightly hairy stuff. When I say hairy, what I mean is when the system does not work. Okay, because you've been about 2 years, you'll be completing 2 years very soon.
Yeah.
You would have seen the system work, and you would know that you have to keep on and on improving your system. What applied 2 years ago will logically not apply today.
Yes.
You gave me the example of March 2020 where you went in for safe stocks. Now that is just one bet. People could have had hundreds of bets. They could have just said buy only financial, because financial is 40% of the index, and you would have still made a reasonably good amount of money. Okay, you might not have been the best guy on the street, but you would have still made reasonably well. Or somewhere around August, September was when the mood completely changed. Risk came back. People were like, small cap, mid caps is the thing. And from September of last year to around recently, small and middies were like, on fire. So there's stuff that works, okay, and stuff that doesn't work. That's just how markets are. Yes. You've given me the entire story of how stuff has worked for you really well.
Yes.
What are your learnings so far of when things went completely wrong? Okay, maybe you lagged your benchmarks.
Yeah.
What did you learn from them?
Right. So 2-3 things, right? What let's define what we mean by wrong. When I'm buying stocks, the machine is giving me a range of probability outcomes on what it thinks will do well over the next quarter. Okay? Now, doesn't mean every bet I make does well. If I buy 10 stocks, I'm expecting 3-4 to do really well, 3-4 to do okay, and 3-4 to do poorly. This happens consistently in my backtest and in life, in life conditions. So, but to me, that's not a mistake, right? I'm buying portfolios and I expect some to do well, some not to do well. When do we do well? When do we don't? For me, my biggest thing is, my biggest sort of check is to say how much risk am I taking to deliver the alpha that I'm generating, right? And the whole idea of using technology is to say, can you deliver alpha at market level risk? What that means is, if you put money in a Nifty 500 ETF, you would have to take a certain level of risk. March में जब market 38% drawdown, that was the max drawdown, that you'll have to take, right? So for us, the biggest sort of comfort we take is in the fact that our risk numbers look very similar to the index. When markets fall, I will also fall, right? I expect that because I'm a long only fund. I'm not doing FNO, hedging, none of that. So actually very boring product, right? You buy stocks, you sit on them every quarter, you rebalance. The only thing is machine is powering it. So 2-3 things. One is, when markets fall, we will fall as much as market. Not every bet we make will make money. Many of them will not, right? And in markets that are sideways, that are not really doing anything, we also end up doing okay or middling. It depends, right? The idea is, like I was saying, when you put them together and you make 3-year business cycles, there'll be a period of outperformance, there'll be a period of doing okay, and there'll be a bull market, a bear market. So across that 3-year period, we end up delivering significant alpha because you're able to do slightly better. So I guess the hairy part of it is, just because it's a machine is not 100% right all the time, right? And we will also fall. And that is what people need to remember, which is you're investing behind probabilities and not behind, foolproof system.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of winding down the episode now. What I like to call the 4 P's, right? There's process, product, philosophy, performance, right? We've covered process, we've covered product, we've covered performance. Talk to me about philosophy and what you offer to your clients. Is it and I'm not talking about product details out there. Okay, forget all that. We've spoken about the product details. Okay. When I say philosophy, what is your goal? Are you offering that we will beat the index for you? That is a goal. Okay,
Yes.
or do slightly better than the index. That is a goal. Or do you or do you look at this differently when you offer this product to your clients?
Right. No, so goal is very simple. Actually, this is the simplest part of what we do, which is to say deliver alpha at market level risk. That's literally my goal, which is to say, if you give me money for 3 years, I should keep your risk at index and deliver. Internal targets are do 1.5 to 2.5 times better than the index. That's broadly what we target. And to us, that's a very simple philosophy to follow, right? Because again, not doing anything fancy. If I'm just buying stocks, I can't expect to, put on a big show.
So essentially what you're saying is that the Nifty 100 gives you 10%, you should be looking at 15 to 20%.
Yes.
That would be a good target to follow.
Yes.
I think that's quite simple. Okay,
Yeah.
fine. The finer details now. We already spoke about how you've got a PMS, how you've got a small case. What are the costing out here? And of course, how can our listeners sign up? Where do they go?
Right. So actually, very simple. Go to our website, upsideai.com. And when you click on the invest button, it'll ask you how much you want to invest. And based on that, take you to where you need to go to start signing up. Broadly, we've tried to keep pricing similar across the board for our PMS as well as retail customers. If you're a retail customer putting in about 1 lakh or plus, you end up paying 2.5% a year or as fees, which is billed to you monthly automatically, etc. And within the PMS, you can do different things. You can have management fee, you can have profit share, etc. So it ends up being a blend, but broadly ends up working out to about 2.5% a year as well.
And I'm sorry, since I have not invested either in a PMS or in a small case, but is this included in the portfolio value, or do I cut a separate check to you, or how does that work now?
So on the small case, actually it's great because they have linked your bank account at the back end using NACH. So every month there's an auto debit and I'm paid automatically. And within the PMS, if you give me 50 lakhs, from that only your fee gets deducted. So when you see your return number, it's net of those fees, etc. So you just give money and forget about it. That's the idea.
Folks, there you have it. Before I wind up, I have to ask you the most obvious question: "Kya lagta hai?" I mean, I don't usually do this, but why not?
Yeah. So actually, and we obviously get this all the time. So let me make it very simple for you. If I had another 50 lakhs to invest today, I would put in the money market as soon as we hung up. The idea for us is to always say short term cannot time the market. Anyone who's telling you they can do that is lying. You should stay in the market as long as you can. Markets tend up in the long term, so that's why stay in market as long as you can. So if I had 50 lakhs today, I would deploy it immediately.
No, hold on. Oh, let me understand that. So you guys do take cash calls because a lot of PMSs don't work on cash. They get 50 lakhs today, and whether the Nifty is at 15,000 or at 8,000, the entire money goes straight in. Do you guys take cash calls that way? Stay in cash?
The algo takes cash calls, yes. So actually, it's a reverse cash call. So basically, risk management wise, it has to find at least 10 opportunities to invest in. We don't like putting more than 10% of any portfolio in one stock. So if it can find only say 8, it's saying there's not enough out there. We'll say 20% in cash. So that's the reverse cash call it takes. But all of 2020 so far in 21, never taken a cash call. We've been fully invested, and that's what I
mentioned
mean by,
that if I had 50 lakhs to deploy and I would come to you, the first thing you would do is put it into a money market fund or some
I would put it in the market.
Oh, you would. Oh, sorry. I
That's what I
kind of this line, man. I really missed the studio. So you're saying it would go straight in the market
Yes, immediately.
as per what your algorithm tells you.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay, even
Yeah.
now.
Even now.
So then you're saying that, going forward, at least for the next 1 year, you think that if you were to get a 50 lakh sum today, you could give a 15 to 20% alpha based on the algos.
Not over the next year, 3 years, always 3 years.
Okay.
Right. Next year, I don't know. But 3 years, that's the target. And that's what our backtests point to. That's what our live numbers point to. That's what we think we hope to do.
Always increase the term, the time.
Yes.
Hold on, let me get this right. Increase the tenure and you just kind of control the risk on your downside a little bit better. As I don't know who was it who said this first, it's time in the market, not timing the market. So
yeah, perfect.
Okay. Kanika, you spoke about the costing for this. You spoke about the products that you've got. You said you've got a PMS. You said you've got a small case. Roughly, the small case is about 1 for people who want to invest 1 lakh. The PMS is for people who want to invest 50 lakhs. Roughly, mota, sab kuch mila ke, it's like 2.5% per 2.5% per year, roughly. Are you guys planning anything new? Like, are you guys planning to start a mutual fund, for example? What are your plans?
So mutual fund is licensed. Usse zyada exciting is, what do you do with products? We built these bottom-up fundamental investors that we like to think. The other two things we're working on right now that we're actively beta testing is one, our US product. So what we want to start doing is essentially right now the kind of access you have to US products is koi ETF hoga, you put money in NASDAQ 100 or you do a FANG product or something like that. What we want to do is US mid and small caps. So we started building track record there. Want to be able to offer Indian investors, like we've been talking about diversification, away from India also, and start looking at US, but a more niche market. I don't want to compete with the large mutual funds to offer an ETF, but what else can you do? So very excited about that. We're seeing great numbers so far. So hopefully over the next 6 months we have something there, and we can start offering it.
But two things there. The first is you'll need a tie with a broker or somebody of that sort to give you that kind of market making or the kind of liquidity out there. And second is taxation, because I'm guessing that would be taxed as what? As a debt fund because it's 65-35, or how will that be taxed?
So we're still sort of figuring out what's the exact right structure to do it and who to do it with. But idea is to say it has to be tax efficient, obviously, and even transaction costs, etc. So want to see 2 quarters of data and then start figuring out what's the right way to productize it. I think we'll work on that this year. And the other one, and the other one is actually a top-down macro asset allocator, where what we're doing is figuring out inflation rates, interest flows, like you talked about, different things, and what's the right debt, equity, commodities allocations that you should be making.
For India, that is.
For India. So idea is, first step is how do you split it? Don't use humans to do it. Figure out, use tech to do it. And then within that, offer products like we'd have with equity.
And will this be an equity or will it be an asset allocator or what?
Asset allocator. Like?
Oh, so you'll be mixing up everything. You have like equity and debt and all of that. Sounds really exciting. I hope that we can have you back on Paisa once this is launched, once it's out there, once people can invest, and we'll get back and talk to you about it.
Yes, sounds fun.
On that note, I wish you guys all the best. I think it's a very exciting product. I would love to have you guys back sometime, maybe after a few months, and then see how things are going. Things hopefully will be better. It's really going through a very tough time right now, the entire country. But that's it. That's a wrap on this episode of Paisa. My guest, Kanika Agarwal, co-founder and CIO at Upside. Kanika, thank you so much for doing this for our listeners.
Thanks, Anupam. It was lovely being here. Lovely talking to you. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode.
Thank you. Stay safe. And listeners, if you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are IVM Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, I'm your host, Anupam Gupta, B50 on Twitter. Thank you so much for listening to Paisa Vaisa.
IVM.